How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of What Really Happened. I'm Carter Hall, and I hope you're having a great Feel Good Friday because we've got another episode on deck with you with Hannah Frick, another fellow podcaster. Hope you sit back and just have some fun with us because she's bringing a lot of knowledge about the Bible and her podcast and how it got started. So I hope you have a lot of fun, and let's get into it. Here's What Really Happened with Hannah.
And let myself unwind. Shine that light on me. I'll sit and tell you my stories. Shine on me, and I will find a song.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What Really Happened. I'm here with Hannah Frick of Happening at Hannah's, and you can catch her podcast on Anchor and Spotify. And Hannah, thanks for joining the show. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So as I said, you kind of have your own podcast called Happening at Hannah's, and I kind of want to know what drew you to start your own podcast.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on another podcast. This is different than, normally I'm the one asking
Yeah,
questions, so this is fun.
yeah,
Okay, so that's a long story, but I'll give you like the shortened version of it. So I've
mm,
always like loved listening to podcasts for like as long as I can remember, and then like even before the podcast trend, my mom always grew up like her radio was on, so she was listening to talk radio, and so I've just always that's been something I've liked, and so sometime last year before quarantine, I had really thought about doing a podcast. I was like, okay, this will be really fun. So in January of 2020, I was in South Africa on a study abroad trip, and I finally
yeah.
just like sat down and I made a plan for a podcast, texted a friend, was like, hey, like hold me accountable for this. I'm starting a podcast. Um, so I ordered like a cheap little microphone off of Amazon. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this podcast, and I was like, okay, well, what do I want the content to be about? And so I was like, okay, thinking, I was like, I'm gonna interview people and ask them how they came to know Jesus. And so that was just like the heart behind it, is to share how people have met Jesus and what their life looks like. And then also, I just thought it would be a fun way to interview people. And during quarantine, it turned out to be one of the neatest things I've done.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds really cool. So you said you went to a study abroad trip?
Yes, so I went with Dr. Osuware in the communication department
Yeah,
to South
yeah.
Africa, and it was so crazy, so fun. It was just a crazy 2 weeks. Lots of learning. I learned a lot on that trip.
Oh, that sounds pretty fun. Um, so you're there for 2 weeks. Wow. What kind of stuff did you learn over there while you were there?
Yeah, okay, so with it being study abroad, you do have a lot of stuff that you're learning. So I took the course, so I went over Christmas break and I took the course the fall before, and so we did a lot of prep work for that. And so with that, we did a lot of media, marketing, different communication stuff with two different nonprofits there. And I'm blanking on their names because I don't have them right in front of me. But one of the nonprofits worked with children after school, and so we took a lot of books for them,
Oh, wow.
and we painted this really cool mural on their little building. So it was like this little trailer, and that's where they did after school program. And then the other one was a tourist company, and they help people go on tours of different parts of the township that they lived in. And so it was just neat to see all the history and get to work with a lot of people at WT. We learned a lot of like just how to do stuff. And one of the neat things about this trip is we got to meet the U.S. ambassadors to Cape Town.
Oh, wow. That
And so
sounds
that was
awesome.
cool. It was cool. And then we gave them a presentation. I say we, it was more my friends and I ran the slideshow, but it was cool because we got to work with them and just do some neat projects. So it was a lot of just learning how to work abroad and working within the communication field, both on like the media side of that and then the corporation side of it. So it was a crazy fun trip. And then we did a lot of tourist things. We got to see the little penguins on Boulder Beach, hike up a mountain.
Awesome.
It was really fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. Um, are you a communication major at WT or what's your major?
Yeah, So I will graduate in 3 weeks from when we're filming this or recording this. With a
Congratulations.
degree in communication. Thank you. Yeah, it's exciting. When do you graduate?
I still got a year left.
Okay, awesome. I couldn't
Yeah.
remember. I knew we were close, but I
Yeah.
didn't remember how much longer you had.
Yeah, I got about 2 more semesters and I'll be at a WT.
It's crazy. It seems like just the other day we started college. I don't know how.
I don't know. It just went
But
by and it felt like it went by in a blink of an eye, kinda.
it really did. It's crazy. Like I feel like I've known you since freshman year of college, so like 2017. I feel like I just met you the other day, but that's like almost 4 years ago.
Oh wow, that is right. Dang, 4 years ago. Dang.
Like that's insane. It's like it doesn't seem like that long ago.
I know.
And I
I'm trying to. It feels like I just graduated high school and now you and I are about to graduate from college. It's just crazy, you know.
I know it's insane. Like it's just like that last little bit of school, and it's like okay, I gotta finish the things up. It's just a lot. But I also think it's cool to reflect on like the last little bit of time. It's just been so fun. College has been a fun experience.
Yeah. So what do you plan to do after you graduate from WT? Like, what's your goal that you want to achieve?
Okay, so that's a long answer too. Sorry, all my answers today seem long, but
That's
my
okay. Take your
ultimate
time.
okay, so like ultimately like dream job, I want to work in a nonprofit doing something to help people. And so the biggest thing that I've found that I'm really passionate about is the pro-life movement. And so there's a lot of cool stuff that you could do with that working in a nonprofit and getting like just ways that they're able to help children actually like be born in America. And so I've been researching some of the statistics and stuff, and that really just originates back to like my parents had me when they were 19 and 20, and so I know that like having a kid when you're young is hard. Or like when it's an unplanned pregnancy, like that's been my life. Like that was me, I was that kid, but it's like also those babies deserve to live. So that's like ultimate dream job. I haven't quite figured out how to go about that. I found a few different programs, but as I'm starting off with, I'll graduate in May and then I'll work at a church camp this summer. And then after that, I'm going to be working. I'm not sure where yet. I'm still looking. I decided to not move, so that kind of put a kink in my plans as I had to go in and try to find a job around here.
Oh, awesome. I thought of a question. Trying to
Yeah.
think about it. I'm sorry, but
No, you're
so
good.
you said you've been, finding a lot of research and everything like that. So, how do you hope to, I guess, how can I word this? How do you hope to bring that research and knowledge that you found forward to, I guess, once you graduate? How do you bring that forward? I guess, is this through your work, or how do you hope to
Yeah.
bring that knowledge?
Okay, I think that's a really great question. So I've done a little bit of research. There's this really great website called Live Action, and it's written by the lady that runs it started it in her garage when she was like 15. Her name's Lila Rose. And so she's done a lot of like, reporting and stuff. And so like they'll go in and they'll research different things. And so that's been probably my main source of, just like knowledge that I read stuff. Their Instagram's really helpful as well. And so I think a lot of that is just like educating people. And so I know that there's different people that go in and they'll come and give talks. So like I one time went to this talk and this lady was talking about bioethics. And so she took down, okay, what does it mean? When is a human first considered a human? And so we broke that down, and then we looked at the different attributes of like what it looks like to become like I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, but she said something
It's
to the
okay.
effect of how does a baby become formed? And then she walks through it, and then why, and then what an abortion is. And so, like in my head, I've always grown up knowing, okay, abortion is wrong, but I never understood, okay, abortion then goes in and like they take apart a baby and like pretty much rip them apart. And sorry, that's really graphic, but it's just
It's
like
all good.
how it is. And so it's like once I saw that video, I realized, okay, there are thousands of children dying every day. They don't have a voice. They can't talk. And then I go back to that could have very easily been me. Like my parents were freshmen and sophomores in college when they found out they're going to be my parents. And it's just like giving people the resources to, okay, well, maybe, yeah, it's scary that you're going to have a baby, but going alongside them and helping them. So there's a really cool organization. It's local in Amarillo called Hope Choice. And that's done a lot of great, great things. And so something like that, I know they do a lot of neat things. They help mentor people. They give people diapers and formula if they need it. Different stuff like that. Does that answer your question? I know it's very
Yes.
broad, and I'm still trying to figure it all out because it's a
No,
lot to figure out.
it's all good. That was a really perfect answer. Thank you for bringing that knowledge out to people. But
Yeah.
so I'm kind of trying to bring this around a little bit back.
Okay.
So with so it sounds like you're really doing a lot of great work with your knowledge and research, and you're also, I guess, doing your own podcast, like you said, and stuff like that. So it sounds like you're, like you said, you mentioned like you're doing stuff for the church like once you graduate. So it kind of brings me back a little bit. So why? Because I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, which are really great, by the way. Everybody should go check that out.
Thank
But
you.
yeah. So of course. So why um, do I kind of got like a your podcast is kind of like a Christian based. I think
Mhm.
what I would describe as a Christian based podcast. So
Yeah,
why?
definitely.
So why of all topics, why kind of like bring I guess that to the forefront of your podcast?
Yeah. Okay. So kind of why I went Christian based with that is I was thinking, okay, obviously I've been a Christian. I've grown up. I've been a Christian since I was 4, gone to church most every Sunday, and I feel like part of living in the Texas Panhandle, I just assume people are Christians, and I
Hmm.
think sometimes that's not the case at all. And so I thought, okay, well, if I assume that, I'm sure other people assume that as well. And so I thought, wouldn't it be neat if I interviewed people and asked them like what their walk with the Lord was like? And so to me, being a Christian, I felt like that's a very important thing. So when I was going to start a podcast, that just kind of was like the first thing I thought of, okay, how can I share the gospel? And it was just neat to see how God was able to move because during quarantine is when I did most of this. I recorded my first episode, spring break, right as it was like lockdown. And so during that time, it was just, I ended up moving back in with my parents. And it was just very, just like, I don't know if you had this occurrence happen, but I was very, I don't know if depressed is the right word, but depressed, like I didn't want to really do anything. There wasn't anything to do. And so then it was all of a sudden, I had something to do, something to look forward to. I was interviewing people, getting to share the gospel with people, that kind of thing. So, does that answer kind of what you were wondering?
Yes, that sounds awesome. So, I kind of went through the situation you kind of went through with COVID. You know, we
Yeah,
kind of got the longest because we all kind of as college students we got the longest spring break ever.
we
People kind of
did
say.
5 months.
So, yeah. Um, so during that time, you know, it was kind of one of those things too. I kind of went something similar. I felt like I needed to, of course, everything, all classes went to Zoom and everything like that, and um, so I felt like I really needed something to help with that creative side. So I felt like the same thing, kind of like the podcast was one of the first thing that came to my mind
Yeah.
too. But so just trying to help that creative aspect of everything, you know, and just find a way to talk to people. So um,
Yeah.
so this has really been helping. So I think you've been really good too with your podcasting. So there's a couple episodes on there. I'm like, wow, these are really intriguing episodes.
Right?
Yeah. So kind of speaking about that a little bit about podcasting, where do you draw your inspiration for your like an episode? If you go about an episode or your just general broadcast, where do you find your inspiration?
Okay, I love this question. So I'm actually releasing a podcast Wednesday the 21st, so I think it'll be released by the time this episode we're recording is out. But I talk about that a little bit on there. But really, okay, you know the Instagram page Humans of New York?
Yes, I've heard about it. Yes.
Okay, so that one is neat because it's like they're telling stories about people in New York. And I was like, okay, I kind of want to mirror my podcast off of that. And okay, like it's happening at Hannah's because I went off my name, but like talking about people and like telling their stories. And so a lot of the inspiration is just like I want to hear people's stories. I want to know what their life's like, what they've grown up doing, what something they feel passionate about, that kind of thing. And so that's a
Yeah.
lot of the inspiration. And so I ask usually the same few questions per every podcast. Sometimes I accidentally forget to read one, like one time I did that. And then I'll ask like random ones. Like I know one of my friends was really into coffee, so I asked him a lot about coffee. And so it's just like a lot of knowing the person, and
Hmm.
then knowing like some things to ask them. I've done a couple podcasts where I didn't know the people as well, but it was neat because I got to know them more. Or something that's been cool is one of my friends I've known for forever. I interviewed her and I was like, I didn't know half of this information. So I think just the inspiration of knowing people and sharing their stories has been my biggest inspiration for the podcast.
That's pretty awesome. That's kind of why I kind of wanted to start my podcast. I didn't know about that about yours. I just felt like I want to help give that platform for people to tell their story, too, and kind of that's where I kind of get my inspiration too a little bit. So we both have that
Yeah,
similarity. So,
that's cool.
um, yeah, thank you. And so how was your journey? I guess hosting your own podcast. How has that journey made you a different person because of creating your own content and doing everything? Just how has your overall experience and journey made you a different person?
Yeah, okay. I like that question. So I think a lot of like working for yourself versus like someone asking you to do stuff, you kind of have to be strict on yourself because I know for me, I'll just, oh, I can get to that later. Like it's not a deadline. So I have to like give myself deadlines. I've also realized within that I am very easy at getting distracted. I'll like, oh, I'll edit that later, and then it goes later. So I think that's a big thing. And then something else I've changed is just like every time I listen to this podcast, I'll record it and then I go back and edit it. So before it gets out, I've listened to it 2 to 3 times. And so
Yeah.
each time I listen to it, I just kind of just the stories really get me most times. Like I've had a couple where I was just like in tears listening to it. I was like, wow, this is just crazy. But it's like people telling their stories points me back to Jesus. And so it's like every time I listen to that, I'm just like, wow, like God is doing amazing things. Like he's changing people's hearts and just continuing to do that. Even like a lot of the podcasts during quarantine, it was just something positive to look forward to and realizing that while the world is crazy, God's still in control and he's still moving. And so I think that's been a biggest change in my life with the podcast, probably like the biggest thing, honestly.
Awesome. So you mentioned the Bible, and I believe so too, that God, is in control because I'm a Catholic too. So
Uh-huh.
I always, always go back to my Bible and always try to read something new that I haven't read before, or maybe go back and I've read something that like I have read before because I'm reading Proverbs right now, and there's some stuff that like I really didn't catch the first time around.
Uh-huh.
So even during this quarantine, it really allowed me to reflect back on that too. So, um, kind of bringing that up of the Bible, I was going to ask, is there any like specific Bibles that or Bible verses or Bible books in the Bible that you really go to more often than the others, or that you like more?
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to think about that. Let me grab my Bible on my phone app
So good.
to see. But I really like the verse, and it talks about. I'm gonna have to look up what it is because I always want to tell people it's a different verse than it is. But it talks about how. Let me think how it goes. It's something to the effect of clothe yourself in kindness, goodness, wisdom, gentleness, and self-control. I think it's Colossians.
Oh yeah.
Um, but that one's just one of the verses I learned as a kid, and I just like it because it reminds me, like, okay, you need to be set up as like, oh, here it is. So it's Colossians 3:12, and it says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience." And I love that verse because it just reminds me, okay, like, as a Christian and like just even people that are not Christians, like God loves us and He's chosen us and He like wants to have a relationship with us, and it's telling us that we're dearly loved. So then we need to like clothe ourselves with compassion. So like loving people, having compassion, showing them kindness, humility, being gentle, patient. That one's just one of my favorite like verses of the Bible. And then if I had to pick a favorite book of the Bible, I would probably say the book of Ruth because I just like it. It's 4 chapters, real short.
Yeah.
I can read it in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It actually might be 8, kind of think of it. Anyways, but I just really like the story of Ruth because it's like Ruth and Naomi, like she's from another country. She comes in, and she ends up married to this guy in another country, and like the whole thing of like the lineage, you can trace it to Jesus, and she's one of the few women in the lineage of Jesus, and so that's just my personal favorite book of the Bible.
That's awesome. It's kind of funny how you bring that up and everything like that because I think, it's funny how, you know, God works in funny ways sometimes, in good ways sometimes. Because just not even less than a month ago, maybe about a month ago, one of my friends from the gym we work out at, she goes, we happen to be talking
Uh-huh.
about the Bible as well, just randomly. And she goes, hey, you should probably check out Ruth. It's super short, it's really good. But so I was like, oh, cool, I'll check it out or read it. And I didn't know it
Uh-huh.
was 4 chapters long.
Yeah,
So I
it's
read
four
it like it was,
chapters.
yeah, so it was super short and super quick. A really good book, but it's really, short. And then literally like a day or two later, I ran into one of my other buddies at the Roasters, and he's a big Bible guy too. So we were just talking about the Bible, and he goes, "Hey, you should check out Ruth." So I got 2 people within a couple of days of each other telling me to read Ruth. I'm like, okay, I see this as a sign from God. I got to really read Ruth more. So I just read it over and over. And so if you go back and look at Ruth, it's all highlighted and pinned out and anything like that. So
Yeah,
it's just
it's
funny
really
how,
cool.
yeah, so you're the third person to actually bring up Ruth now. So it's just funny.
Oh,
So,
that's hysterical. I love that. It's just such a good story, and I think it's just like when you're reading the Bible, it's one of those stories it's the easier one to understand sometimes. And like there's still some
yeah,
stuff I have to go look up. Okay, what does this mean like when it talks about a guardian redeemer and I have to go look up the Jewish culture with that. But that's just it's cool because it's so short, but you can read it and every time you read it you're just like, wow, that was a great story.
yeah, for sure. I I think there's been a couple books too in the Bible, I think, where I think some stories are, I don't know if you find this too, but I think for me, I think it's some stories or books are easier to read some other ones. Like,
Yeah.
Um, well, I think what I just read. I'm reading Proverbs over again right now, but I just got done reading but the Gospel according to John, and I
Hmm.
felt like that one was really easy to read because the book before I read the book before that one was Leviticus, and that one took me the longest to read
That one's
because it's just
hard.
so hard to understand, I believe. So I don't know why. It just felt like after reading, it took me feel like so much more quicker to read John than it was Leviticus. Because I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you find that same situation at all too.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think like even like comparing Leviticus to John, like you're reading a whole bunch of laws and you're like, wait, what? And
Yeah,
then you read John and it's like an eyewitness account and you're listening, okay, well this happened and this happened. You're like, okay, cool. And I think it's easier because you're just like, okay, what happens next? I don't
yeah,
know if you watched the show The Chosen, but they just came out with season 2 and it's talking about like the story of Jesus. So it's going
yeah,
through the Gospels, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And that one, I'm always on the edge of my seat. Okay, I'm like, I've read these stories a million times, but like, what's gonna happen next? And so, I think
yeah,
that's just the
yeah,
nature of how the author wrote them.
for sure. What's that called? Is it The Chosen?
Yeah, so it's called The Chosen. So you can go, I'll send it to you, but for those of you listening to the podcast, if you just literally go to your app store on whatever device you have, you can type in The Chosen. It's also on their YouTube channel, and it's a completely like watch. Like if people watch it, they can pay. So like it's free if you download the app and you can watch it completely free. But it's a project where like it's donations, and so this guy, his name is I
Oh,
think
sweet.
Dallas Jenkins is the director, and it's super cool. It's really neat. I've loved every second of it. I need to start the second season. I've been
Mhm.
busy, haven't got to it yet.
That's awesome. Have you? I imagine you have. I don't know if you have or not, but on YouTube, what kind of helps me when I'm reading some parts of the Bible? It's not like some parts that really don't like click, or if I just want to go back and get a general idea of a book before I read it. There's this
Hmm.
YouTube people who can look this up too, listening to the podcast or watching. You may have heard of it. It's called the Bible Project.
Yes.
So those are some of my videos I like to go to and watch. I'm like, even I did that countless times because they have a book over Leviticus. Lord knows how many times I did that for that book. Just having to go look over their
Uh-huh.
videos. So they do. I think they kind of like do like a breakdown of people listening who may not know what the Bible Project is. I kind of quick summary. They kind of just go down like they get different books and then they break down I guess chapter by not chapter by chapter but some
Like
parts
an
of the Bible.
overview,
Yeah, kind
maybe?
of like a summary. Yeah, it's like Spark Notes for the Bible in a way.
Yeah.
It's that's the best way to put it. But so that's what helps me a lot too. And then it's kind of
Yes.
funny too, that um when I remember watching a video one day, and not before long, like soon after, I heard that you had your own podcast too. So I was like, oh, this cool stuff, coming like, connects to each other. So
That's funny. I
yeah,
love the Bible Project. I love the
yeah,
illustrations. They're so
too.
talented. I'm not very the most artistic person we know. And so every time I watch it, I'm just like, whoa.
I know. Um, I'm a visual person too, so I need a lot of illustration in my life because ADD, I
Uh-huh.
just can't. I need illustrations in my life sometimes, and I think they have a good example of doing that as well.
Yes.
Um, so I guess kind of next question is like, when you, I guess, when you get a guest, how does your preparation go for a guest when you're making a podcast? Like, how does that go for you?
Oh, okay, yeah, I love this question. So it's changed slightly since quarantine's been over. So I don't know if anyone listens to my podcast, but for a while I would go in and I would have like a podcast like two every week, one Tuesday, one Thursday, because I had so many people. And then all of a sudden reality got to we could go back to school and stuff like that. So I do one every other week now. And so it depends. So like my most recent one out is Grayson's, and so Grayson was in class with me, and he goes, "Hannah, you have a podcast?" Or some girl had told us or something. I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I want to be on it." I was like, "Okay." And then he like texted me, "Hey, are we doing the podcast this week?" So like that one was super easy to get because
Yeah,
it was just like, "Hey, Hannah, I'm gonna come do it." And so like me and some friends who sat in the kitchen recorded it. I recorded 2 episodes back to back. And then other times
cool.
I'll text people, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast?" Sometimes they'll respond, sometimes they'll be like, yeah, and then we never get around to it. So I think it's just a lot of just like mine as far as like how I've done it is it's like, okay, I know so and so and I know them from, let's say, like an organization or something. So I'll text them and ask them. But I've also done one, I can't remember whose it was, but they like had texted me and was like, "Hey, can you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, love to have you on." But it just depends. And I've also
Yeah.
switched from FaceTime. I used to FaceTime and record them, and now I've just been doing them in my kitchen. So it just depends if I do it in person or virtually.
Oh, awesome. So, it's pretty cool. So, do you have any like influences, I guess, influencers in the world of podcasting or radio that really helped
Oh,
you?
okay. So I love podcasts. I have a problem. I listen to too many podcasts. But my favorite one,
Me
and they're
too.
currently not doing them. So I'm going to give you three of my favorite podcasts just because that's what I'm going to do. So I really like the podcast called Behind the Scenes, and that's by Jeremy and Audrey Roloff. And that one's just fun because it's these people. I don't know if you've ever watched the show Little People Big World, but their
Oh yeah.
son, Jeremy, it's his wife and him. And so they just do like what it's like to have the life of like whatever they're doing. So that one's fun. And then I really like the podcast called Views from the Porch. And so the Porch, I don't know if anyone knows what this is, but it's a young adult ministry out of the DFW area.
Oh, cool.
And they just will break down, okay, like the Bible says this. What does that mean for our culture? Or the question like, okay, should I do whatever the question is? Okay, well, what does the Bible say about it? So that one's my favorite because it makes me think a lot.
Mhm.
And then my most favorite podcast that I've been listening to is called The Dr. Jeff Show. And that one is a lot of thinking. And so there's only, I believe they have 8 podcasts out now. But he like interviews people and asks them a lot of questions about different things. So the one I listened to this morning was actually talking about sex trafficking and how that affects different people and like women and children and men that
Yeah.
are affected by that. So that one was really interesting. And then I listened to one that he interviewed the guy, the lead singer from Skillet. So his is like all
Oh,
over
cool.
the place, but they're all really good.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. I just wrote those down so I know I can check them out later. But
Yeah.
so so like obviously you have influences. You listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that to where you started your own. But for anybody out there who may be listening to this and wants to maybe start their own podcast
Hmm.
or even pursue anything in this medium, what advice would you give them? Or I guess what advice would you give them starting out?
Yeah. Okay, I think if you're starting out, you need to get a friend that's going to remind you. So just find one of those friends that's like, oh my gosh, yes, I'd love to do that. One of those friends that's always like, go for it kind of thing. And get them to check on you. Be like, hey, will you do this? Like, remind me to start a podcast. Then I would find a podcasting platform that you can do it. So I personally use Anchor Podcast. I'm not sure. What do you use?
I use well, I use Anchor too, mainly to, I
Okay.
guess, publish everything, but I usually
Mm-hmm.
record through Adobe Audition and
Oh.
edit. So I record in Audition. So the
Uh-huh.
people who may not understand what's going on, Audition's like an audio software. Once I record in and I edit in there and everything in. So
Mm-hmm.
I just, when I'm done editing, I just upload it to Anchor and
Yeah.
distribute that way through different platforms, all the platforms that it has. So that's mainly how I do it.
Yeah, same. So I record mine through Anchor. You can go in the way you do it as well. But
Yep.
I think it's very user friendly. So I think Spotify is
Is
the person that's in charge of it, if I remember correctly. But like they pretty much publish it. So like I have my podcast on Apple, Spotify, Anchor's website, and then whatever other ones. I think there's like, I don't remember what all the other
yeah.
platforms are, but it's super user friendly. So just create an account on there. It's completely free, very easy to navigate. And then I would say maybe get a microphone depending on how you want to do it. I know I've done some off my phone that sound better than my microphone sometimes. So, and those run like $50 on Amazon if you get like a decent one.
Yeah.
I feel like that, and then just go for it. Just go for it and tell your friends about it. Something I did, I created an Instagram account so that every time I release a podcast, it shares it on there so people know. And I know a lot of like social media is a great way to get people to know about your podcast and such. But if anyone ever has a question, they can totally trying to think an easy way to contact me. Well, you can go to my Instagram. It's called Happening at Hannah's. It's the green logo with the house. You can send
Yeah.
me a DM and I can answer any questions on there.
Yeah, awesome. So everybody can go message her if they have any questions. But so I'm trying to think. I had another question. I'm probably the worst host. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing
So
great.
so uh, do you think so for you and your podcast? Do you think social media has been a great tool to help you, or do you think there's some podcasts out there who can just by word of mouth have be good on their own? Which one do you think would you prefer? I know you
Yeah.
have your own, but
I think it just depends on the person and like what your target audience is. So like I know some people like run a podcast and they just share it from their personal account. I also think just sending people like when you have a podcast release, just text them, hey, listen to this podcast I just did. That's how I got a lot of people
yeah,
listening to mine. Granted, my audience has gone way down since quarantine just because I think that's reality with most stuff. But I think that and just
yeah,
not being afraid to, okay, well, if one person listens to that, well, you're making it for that one person. Like, don't get caught up in the whole how many people listen to that. My friend Draven was telling me, he goes, don't worry about it. He goes, you're just going to send it out and then whoever listens to it, great. He goes, if no one listens to it, I've listened to a few, you're good to go, that kind of thing. And just
yeah,
like, I don't know, I think sometimes, me personally, it's like, okay, I want to go big, like I want this to be a big thing, but it's like, honestly, when you have the smaller audience, it's kind of cool. So you can start small and grow from there.
for sure, awesome. So, um, as we're getting kind of closer to the end of the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to say that we maybe haven't covered, or give a shout out to
Oh,
anybody or anything like that, or anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
I can't really think of anything. I know I always ask people this question and it's hard because it's like on spot, but I'm trying to think. I know if you're wanting to start a podcast, just do it. Like go do it right now. Pause this, go get your Amazon account, order a microphone. I think just go do it. Because if not, you'll be like me and I'll get a podcast eventually, and then you'll start it 3 months later. But I think that, I'm trying to think of anything else. Do you need to know anything else?
I don't know. I'm trying to sit here and think.
Yeah.
I think pretty much ran through all the topics and stuff I think and questions I could think of, but
Yeah.
um, go everybody go listen to Hannah's podcast. You won't regret it. It's a lot of fun. You can find that. You said is it Anchor, Spotify,
Yeah,
and
so
Apple.
in Apple, and I believe it's on a
Apple.
few other ones, but I don't know. It says anywhere there, I can't talk, sorry. Anywhere
Okay.
podcasts are available,
I
I
can't
think you
either.
just type Happening at Hannah's, it should be there.
Awesome. So go follow her Instagram happening at Hannah's, right?
Yes, that is it.
So go follow her Instagram, give her a listen, and Hannah, thank you for being on the podcast. I had a lot of
Well,
fun.
Carter, thanks for inviting me. This has been so
Sure.
much fun.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, of course, for being on the show.
Yeah, it was
So,
a blast.
everybody, thank you for listening. And by the time you hear this, it'll be Friday. So, hope you have a great weekend and have a good rest of y'all's day. So, thank you, Hannah. Have a good day.
Yeah, bye everybody.
Bye. Hey, did you like watching that last episode of What Really Happened? If so, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more content on this channel.